Hi everyone, welcome to another live ukulele workshop with me, Matt Stead. We're going to be looking at Fly Me to the Moon in this one, a really classic jazz track. I'm really quite excited about this one today, so it's one of my favourite tracks of all time. Let's just see how you're all doing. I haven't had a chance to catch up with the comments yet from earlier, so hope you're all doing well. Hi Hester, hi Alistair, hi Karen, hope you're doing well guys. So, can you just do me a favour, guys? Just let me know how the sound's going today, because my mic's been... I've got a very loud ukulele. When I play this Bohannon one, it's got loads of volume, which is amazing, but sometimes it overdrives my mic a little bit. So, just let me know how the sound is, folks, if you can hear the uke all right and it's not going buzz, buzz, buzz or anything like that. Hi, Hilka. Hope you're doing well. There we go. Just a boring bit of admin as well, just whilst we're waiting for people to arrive. I noticed last minute today that there's a couple of minor errors on one of the worksheets. Number put in the wrong place mainly. So if you get a chance later on, you don't have to worry about doing it now. I've put a corrected version. You'll find the link in the description. It's free. You don't have to pay again because I know you guys have already paid for these sheets. It's completely free. You can download those from my Dropbox. And the link is in the description, and I've put it on Facebook and a few other places so you can find it. So sorry about that. I actually noticed these corrections yonks ago, and then I completely forgot to do anything about it until about 20 minutes before this session was due to start. I had a mad panic and thought, oh no. So they're up there if you want them, but you'll be absolutely fine with the sheets as they are. I can just tell you a couple of it just means that we're going to put a movable chord sort of 1 fret higher, so not a big one, so don't worry. Hi Karen, hope you're doing well. Oh, good to hear the sounds working. Fantastic. That's brilliant. So hope you're all keeping well wherever you are. It's gone really super cold here, so that's why I'm in my woolly jumper. I do actually have my teaching t-shirt underneath, but it's like no way today. It's far too cold. So if you see me shiver, you know what's going on. I have got the heating on, but I can't put it up too high because it brings the humidity right down. And I'm a bit anal about that. I like it to be perfect humidity for all the ukuleles. So there we go. Right, let's have a look at our sheets then. Oh, actually, one more last bit of admin, just super quick, because I know a lot of my regulars here on a Wednesday are also my regular Canna folk, and I only remembered at the very end of the last Canna on Monday that we've got a childcare issue, so I'm at home next Monday. I'm so sorry. So there's no Canna Monday week, this coming Monday, but we'll be back to normal after that, and hopefully that's it now. Holidays over, childcare issues over, we could go right on through to Christmas, and nearer the time I'll announce a bit of a Christmas special that we'll be doing as well, which will be really exciting. So no Canna next week, but we will be back the week after, and then it's just on from there. And I'm designing a really interesting worksheet for the next Wednesday, which is going to be 2 weeks time, where a couple of people have asked me this in the past. How sometimes you might have like a really short arrangement. We're going to look at a freight train, you know. You might have like a little short arrangement of it, or any song really, but it's not quite enough to make a performance out of. So how do you do that? And we're going to talk about things of messing about the genre, adding different styles, adding different techniques to the same piece, and also how to write little extra sections in the same key. So we're going to take a very short little chord melody and make it into something really fun. So keep an eye on that. Hopefully the worksheets for that will be going live by the end of this week, hopefully. Hi Lisa. So hi Victoria. So yeah, keep an eye out. That'll be 2 weeks time. So should we have a look at, let's have a quick peek at what we're going to be looking at today, folks. So Fly Me to the Moon. Oh, excuse me. This is a really unusual one. I kind of think of most jazz standards that we play today as being written in the 20s, 30s and 40s, some of them in the 50s. So quite kind of early 20th century. But this one, I believe, wasn't written until 1964 by a guy called Bart Howard. And interestingly, it was called In Other Words. So the original lyrics, we've got them in the lyrics that we know now, haven't we? In other words, please be true. And he was actually going to make that the title. So it's originally called In Other Words. And a couple of people performed it, but it was Frank Sinatra's version in the 1960s that kind of shot it to fame. And I think one of the things that made it really kind of popular and stayed in a lot of minds is that it was used as a bit of a soundtrack for the moon landings in the 60s as well. So they kind of went hand in hand. So I kind of think of this as a really old song, but I guess it is relatively, you know, it's not 2010s or 2020s, but it's not as old as I originally thought. So just thought that's quite interesting, really. Let's have a look at what's happening in the song then, because today I really want to talk about a few different things. And the main thing, the essence of this whole piece, if you like, and many other jazz pieces, hi Pete, is these what we call 2-5-1 progressions. So what's a 2-5-1 progression? Well, if we think of any key, let's stay with the key of C because that's what this one is in, which is fairly easy because there's no sharps and flats in it. You can think of the scale degrees as numbers, right? C1, D2, E3, F4, G5, A6, B7. So C, I'll do it on the same thing, hand, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now, when we look at chords in a key, certain numbered chords are generally the same type. I'll show you what I mean. So the 1 chord is normally a major chord, C, being the example in the key of C. The 2 chord is normally a type of minor chord, D, D minor in this key. The 3rd chord is another minor, E minor. The 4th chord is a major, F major. The 5 chord we call a dominant chord. That's a type of 7th chord, but it has a very kind of gritty bluesy feel. So that would be G7 in the key of C. And then finally, the 6th is normally another type of minor, so A minor in this key. And then the 7th is a type of diminished chord. I wouldn't sweat that one. We will use a kind of a diminished alternative today at some point. But they're those kind of really jazzy sounding chords, and they only come up on the 7th chord degree. Now, we can use a good old circle of fifths here. So a lot of people are kind of put off by the circle of fifths because it sounds like kind of scary music theory, right? It's like, what are all those numbers and why are they in that order and everything? But in terms of our 2-5-1 progressions, it can be really, really useful. So I'm just going to flip to the back here. Here we go. Here's our circle of fifths. So the circle of fifths is basically a giant circle which was designed in a particular way to make chord progressions easy to follow and kind of melodies as well. But I like to think of it as chords. And oh, sorry, I'm just stopping for a minute because Lisa's saying the sound is very low. It might be because I did turn it down because I was a bit overdriving. So I'll turn it up a bit. Just let me know if this goes crazy loud and you're like, too much. So hopefully that should help a little bit. Let's see. Just give us a shout if that's gone up now a decent amount. There we go. So fingers crossed that should be a bit better. Let me know. It'll take me a while before it comes through. So anyway, I'll carry on with my ramblings. So the circle of fifths, all it is a big wheel, and the chords, or notes if you like, go round in a particular order. When we go round clockwise around the circle of fifths, each chord to the clockwise of the one to the left, if you like, or anti-clockwise, is a fifth above the other. What does that mean? Well, if we start with C, if we go to clockwise from C, we have G, and G is 5 above C, right? C, D, E, F, G, 5. If we go round from G to D, D is 5 above G. G, A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. It just goes round and round like that. Oh, cool. Good stuff, good stuff. Hi Diana, hi Jennifer. Good, it's sounding better. That's good to know. Just let me know if it gets too loud later on. I don't want to be screaming at you. Be like, So it goes round in fifths to the right, and anti-clockwise it goes in fourths. So from C, F is 4 above C, C, D, E, F. B flat is 4 above F, F, G, A, B flat, and so on and so forth. So we have these circles of fourths and circles of fifths. Now, one of the brilliant uses of this when we're looking at jazz pieces is that these little 2-5-1 progressions that I'm calling are in a particular order as well. Have a look at that key of C again. The outer wheel is all your major chords, if you like, and you can think of it as major key as well. Now, if we have a look from C, if we go 2 to the right, that's the 2 chord, and then we come round to the left again, that's the 5 chord, and that's the 1. So a type of D chord is the 2 in the key of C, C, D. G is the type of 5 chord, C, D, E, F, G, and 1, C is the type of 1 chord, right? And those particular chord types, they all have, it's good to hear, thank you guys. You can actually hear me now, that's useful. So all of those types of chords within those 2-5 progressions, 2-5-1 progressions tend to be certain types as well. The 2 tends to be a type of minor chord, and we're going to play it as D minor 7. The 5 is a dominant chord, we're playing it as G7. And then the 1 in the piece that we're going to do is a type of C, we're playing a C major 7. Don't worry about the shapes, I'll show you how to play them in a minute. So that gives you that classic. Most of you will kind of recognise that from various jazz tunes, a really classic one. And the brilliant thing is you can do that in any key. If I wanted to do it in the key of F, G, which we're going to play as minor 7, would be the 2. C, one to the left of it, or C7 would be the 5. And then some form of major chord at the end, F. And you can do that in any key, it's amazing. In a key of B flat, it would be C minor 7, F7, B flat. So it's really, really cool, this circle of fifths. And one of my favourite things to get students to do is to practice 2-5-1s. Pick a key, see if you can find the 2-5-1s and play the chords. It's a really, really great way to learn your circle of fifths and all the chords that come up in a particular key. Hi Audrey, good to see you, good to see you. So let's just practice that against the sheet. I'm going to go back to the second page in our sheets, which has the first version, if you like, of Fly Me to the Moon. There we go. Now, as well as these 2-5-1 combinations, think of them as like little building blocks in jazz music. There are also chords that are arbitrary. Literally just the composers decided to use them for various reasons. So this piece starts with an A minor 7, again an arbitrary chord, not part of your 2-5-1, which is easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Because it's no fingers at all. And each of these chords in this first line are just going to be played for 4 beats or 4 slow down strums. I'm just down strumming with my thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have our 2-5-1 combination. We've got D minor 7, which is like a D minor, but with this added finger down here on this C note. Okay, so you can think of it like building it from an F to a D minor. There's your little finger, D minor 7. And then the 5 is the G7, just swivel on this finger. And then finally we have a C major 7, a really beautiful chord. Only one note different from C major, which is this one, but it has a really kind of ethereal quality to it. Okay, so let's do that again, the first line, A minor 7, no fingers. 2, 3, 4, D minor 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, G7, 1, 2, 3, 4, and C major 7, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that lovely? Then we've got another, I often call this next chord like a cement chord. It's kind of like a chord which glues these progressions together. So it's an F major 7. Now there's some really tough ways to play an F major 7, but a really simple, easy way that I find is just to play the top 2 strings physically, G and C strings, at the 5th fret. Now those of you that know me know that I'm a bit of a music nerd, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is my favourite chord in the world. I I just think it sounds absolutely beautiful played this way. So 5, 5, 0, 0. Okay. Now, ask loads of questions as we go along today, folks, because I'm going to cover lots of music theory, and some of it will be, some of it you'll already know, and some of it you might not do. So if you get to a bit and you think, gosh, I don't understand that, chances are you might be scared to ask, but loads of other people are thinking exactly the same thing. So help out your fellow ukers. If you're not sure about something, just ask, and I'll keep an eye on the comments so I can see how you're getting on. So that's our first line, and that's our major 2-5-1 pattern. We call it a major 2-5-1 because the one chord, the one that you land on and end on, is a type of major chord. Okay. Now the second line has something called a minor 2-5-1 pattern. Now for some of you that follow my canacapelas, you'll know this from the solos that we do quite a lot of. But if you've never done any, don't sweat it, right? Every major key has a relative minor, we call it, which has all of the same notes in it. So believe it or not, all of the notes in C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, are also all of the notes in A minor, the natural A minor scale. Now, the only difference here is the A minor starts from A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the same notes as C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? Just starting from A. So every major key has a relative minor. And loads of jazz songs, they do a 2-5-1 progression in major and then a 2-5-1 progression in the relative minor. Now here's where that circle of fifths becomes our friend yet again. No worries, David. Oh, nice to drop in though. Thank you. Hoping the best for your brother. Hope he's doing well. So let's just flip to the back here again. There we go. And Indrani's secretly listening at work, so we'll have to whisper. Okay, Indrani. Thank you. So the brilliant thing about circle of fifths is that the minor 2-5-1 pattern is also a pattern in the circle of fifths. And if you flip to this page in the back, it'll be your second to last sheet, I believe. It will look something like this. You've got it on screen, but I've got a hard copy in front of me as well, right? Well, you can see there that the inner wheel is all your minor 2-5-1s. So if we know that the major 2-5-1 in the key of C goes D minor, G7, C, or D, G, C, the minor ones are exactly the same places but on the inner wheel. So the A minor 2-5-1 goes B, E, A. It goes backwards this way. Now don't sweat this too much because this is quite a lot to think about. But because the minor key starts in a different place, A instead of C, we end up with really interesting chords. The first chord in a minor 2-5-1 is a type of diminished chord, and we quite often play that as something called a half diminished chord or a minor 7 flat 5. If you're into your chord theory, if you're not, just let us go over your head, don't worry. If you're into your chord theory, a minor 7 flat 5 or a half diminished chord is a diminished triad. That's a first, a flatted third and a flatted fifth and a flat 7. And a full diminished 7 is the same thing here, but with a double flat 7. Again, you don't need to sweat that. You just need to know how to play the chord, right? And understand that it's a minor 2-5-1. And a brilliant thing is when you get to know these minor 2-5-1s, you can start doing this stuff off by heart. It's really magical. It's really, really clever. And that's what I want you to take from it. So the first chord in the minor 2-5-1 is a B minor 7 flat 5 or a B half diminished chord. You can just about see that hopefully in the green text. I've kind of colour coded it. If you printed it black and white, I'm just talking about the ones on the inner part of the wheel. The next one will be a type of E chord. Now because this is the fifth chord, even though it's in a minor key, we tend to play this as a seventh because those just sound nice that way. We call them dominant chords. So we tend to play either an E7 or an E7 flat 9. All right. And then finally, at last, we get an easy one. The one chord is a type of minor chord, so that's going to be A minor or some type of A minor chord. All right. Now, if we go back to our sheets, you should see that played out, hopefully, in real life. So let's go back and have a look. So I'm just going to flip for a second, guys, to our first page of our first arrangement. Now, hopefully you can see that there. Can you see on the second line, we've got a B half diminished. Now, a B half diminished is sometimes written with that circle with the line across. Looks like a stop sign or kind of like a degrees Celsius, doesn't it, with the line across. So that one there where it says B half diminished seventh, that's the same as a B minor 7 flat 5, okay? Not to be confused with a B diminished 7, which doesn't have the line through the circle. The main thing is, let's have a look at how to play this one. It looks quite kind of scary because it's up the fretboard and there's a tiny 4 next to it, you'll see in a minute, okay? And it's this shape. Now you can play it with 4 fingers like this. Let me bring in close, can be better, wouldn't it? You can play it with 4 fingers like this. So your index finger takes the 4th fret of the G string and these 3 come in here on the 5th fret. Or you can play it with 2 fingers like this. Now remember, if you're doing this where you're barring the bottom 3 of this fret and all 4 of this fret, you only really need to put the pressure with this finger on this top string because this finger's taking the others. Now there's something cool about this chord. Because our fingers are kind of all different sizes, on most people's hand, it's kind of interesting, on most people's hand, this finger is the longest. So if I'm trying to do that shape, it's really awkward because the one that I want to be short is long and the one that I want to be long is short. So some people like to use their 2nd and 3rd when they do this chord shape, or I actually like to do a really cool thing. I use 1st and 3rd. And then this finger that's left over, I like to apply pressure on either finger that needs it. Just give that a go, folks, and you'll get a lovely B half diminished chord, okay? Or again, remember we can do it like this. Yeah, Esther, you spotted the difference between half and fully diminished chords. Yes, just one note, isn't it? You can think about it as this one, scooching back, couldn't you, to a diminished one. Cool. So the next one's nice and easy. We're just going to pull back to a standard E7, just like this. 1, 2, 0, 2. And then finally, the 1 chord in the minor 2-5-1, easy peasy, easiest chord in the world, no fingers, A minor 7. Now notice, just because we want to create a bit of tension that takes us to the 3rd line, we've got 2 strums or 2 beats of A7 there as well. Let's try that 2nd line then, really slow. I'm going to go super, super slow so you can really, really take your time with this, okay? So F major 7, 2 fingers at the 5th fret. Then the B minor 7, flat 5. Pull back to E7. And then 2 A minor 7. And 2 A7. Okay. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When I learnt this a long time ago, there was a guy called Glenn Rose that came on the scene. He's still around doing some really cool stuff. And he had a book called Jazzy Ukulele, which a lot of people learn ukulele jazz from. And I always remember reading that he said, with these jazz chords, they're kind of so awkward that just use any fingers you can. Basically, however you can do it without causing yourself pain is good, as long as it's not totally crazy. The one thing we don't want to do is thumb over the top. I'll explain why later on. That can be a bit awkward. Let's try those first 2 lines then. We'll go from the top. All right, and you can sing along if you want. I think I know the words to this one off by heart, but I'll just have them handy just in case. If I'm looking off into the distance over here, it's just because I'm reading the words, okay? So, yeah, I think I can remember that one. Coming after 4 then. 2, 3, 4. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Next line. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Yeah, isn't that lovely? Okay. And Karen spotted something. She said these chords are gorgeous, and yeah, they are, aren't they? They're really, really beautiful. Now, you could just use kind of normal chords for this if you like. Well, jazz musicians sometimes kind of disrespectfully call vanilla chords. So instead of A minor 7, you could just play A minor. Instead of D minor 7. The only difference with these seventh notes is they have one extra note in. And it's that extra note that makes it sound really rich. The only difference between a C major and a C major 7 is one note. Instead of this high C, we're playing a B. That's the added note. We still have a C in here. And it just sounds rich and glorious, and that's the beauty of these bar chords. All right. So Audrey, the 5-5-5-7 F major 7. Audrey's just asked a good question about the F major 7. It could be played like this. Let me come into close cam. Whole of the 5th fret, and then a finger on the 7th fret, 5-5-5-7. But we're playing it as 5-5-0-0. It's just a different inversion, same notes in a different order. And Audrey, it's like you've read my mind, because when we come to the later version, when we make it super duper fancy, we're going to use that F major 7 there. So we hold that idea and we will come back to it. Okay, let's just finish off this first one then, nice and easy, because the next line is another 2-5-1. It's like another brick, right, in the wall. Let me come in close. So that's D minor 7, 2, 3, 4. 4 of those. G7. C major 7. And then we have something called a turnaround that's used a lot in jazz and blues. If you look really closely at that turnaround, where is it? Wrong hand over here. E minor 7, A7. It's the 2-5 part, like D minor 7, G7, but a whole step up. So instead of D minor 7, E minor 7. Instead of G7, A7. And that's used really common, just this whole step up for 2 chords as a turnaround. Notice it makes you want to go back to the start again, and that's because A is 5 above D. Don't sweat that, it's just kind of interesting. So at the end of that third line, we've done D minor 7, just to remind you, G7, C major 7. Notice I can keep that finger where it is, E minor 7 for 2, and A7 for 2. And then finally, we might as well look at it, because it's the same thing again, isn't it? That bottom line, D minor 7, G7, and C major 7. Now we have a different kind of turnaround at the end of this line, just here. No, wrong hand. Everything's flipped backwards like in a mirror when I'm on this programme. Just here, it's the first part of the minor 2-5-1 again. Don't sweat the whys and wheres for now, but just know that we do 2 beats of that awkward B diminished, half diminished 7. You can do it. And we pull back to E7. Isn't that lovely? So if you look at those grey boxes on the sheet, you can see how formulaic jazz is. We've got an arbitrary chord, then we've got a major 2-5-1, a cement chord that glues it together, and then we've got a minor 2-5-1. Then we've got a major 2-5-1, turn around, major 2-5-1, turn around. Songs like Autumn Leaves, loads of other jazz songs use these exact progressions. And when you start to recognise them, it's amazing. I used to get really nervous about going on stage with you. In actual fact, I'll be totally honest with you guys, I still do. It never ended. But one of my favourite things was when I started to recognise these chord progressions. So when people invite me on stage to do a song, they go, this one's just major 2-5-1s. And they tell me the key, and I'd just be able to play along with them, and it's like magic, and I want you to have that too. So let's try the whole of that first page then. Strum along with me slowly. Later on in the workshop, if we get time, we'll look at kind of strum patterns and picking patterns to make this more interesting. But just for now, what I would suggest is just strumming down gently with your thumb 4 times per measure. Okay, let's give it a go then. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Fly me to the moon and let me play to the 5th fret. Let me see what life is like. Minor T5-1 on Jupiter and Mars. Major T5-1. In other words, hold my hand. Turn around. In other words, darling, kiss me. And then if you can, that quick turn around. Whoops, I went to the wrong one. See, if I make mistakes, you're allowed to. So that's the whole of the first page. You'll notice that the second page is pretty much the same thing, so it won't take you long to pick this up. Diana's just saying, if you play the F minor 7 with your index finger and middle, it's easier to transition to the 4-finger B diminished 7. Yeah, right. That's it. So if you do that F major 7 with those 2 fingers, then it's really easy to kind of pull down to here, isn't it? So yeah, good spot, Dana. Really nice. And that's the thing. You've got to experiment loads with these things and you'll find all sorts of really interesting combinations. And bear in mind, when we do the second version of this, I'm going to talk to you about chord substitutions, inversions, taking it up the fretboard. And this is like the bare bones version. All right, so we're going to make it sound even nicer than this. So you're going to have loads of options. So yeah, cool. Let me know how you got on with that, guys. And we'll just flip to the second page and we'll have a look at that. This song is basically 2 choruses or 2 verses. In jazz, it's a bit confusing. What we call a verse, they tend to call a chorus. That means like once through the whole progression. But yeah, same thing again, pretty much. So if you look at this next sheet, it's pretty much the same thing again, only when we get to the 3rd line, instead of the C chord that would normally be there, the C major 7, we've got an E minor 7. And can you see above that, I've written the word sub. That just means substitution. And in jazz, a common thing to do is take a common chord, such as a C major 7, and swap it out for another one. And one of the most common chord substitutions is to take the 1 chord, that's C major, isn't it? Some type of C major chord, and replace it with the 3 chord, which would be an E minor in the key of C. And that's what it does on this 3rd line, look. I'm just going to play it for you slowly and bring my fingers in. See if you can notice the change. The first one went, in other words, hold my hand. But now we have, in other words, please be true. A different feel, right? The reason that minor 7 swap, the 3rd chord in the key of C for the 1 chord works, you can see it here really clearly, is because it's only 1 note different. Okay, so the 3rd of any key played as a minor 7 is only 1 note different from the 1 major 7. All right, so that's why it works. And it gives it a different feel because instead of going, I'll just speed it up, just say, in other words, hold my hand. It's got a different feel with the vocals, hasn't it? In other words, please be true. And then we pair it with an A7. And then on the bottom line, in other words, 2-5-1 progression again. I love, and then a C6. You. Now I like that C6 at the end because I like that kind of jazziness and how pretty it is. But you could play any type of major C chord. And this sheet that's right in the back of your packs, I'm going to flip to it now, is one of the most useful sheets, hopefully, if I've done it right, that you'll find when you're playing a lot of jazz music. Now, we can change chords for other types of the same type of chord, chords from the same family. So, you know how you get all these different chord names, major 7th, 7th, 6th, minor 6th, dominant 7th, all these different chord names. They all fall into 4 different families. Either major chords, which are your kind of happy sounding chords, your minor chords, which are kind of sad and dark, dominant chords, which sound groovy and bluesy, and diminished chords, which sound kind of spooky and jazzy. Those are the four main types of chord families that composers use. And then within each of those kind of chest of drawers, you can pull out a different type of chord from that chest. So anytime you have a major chord, you could do any types of these major chords. Look, instead of a C, you could do a C major 7. Instead of a C major 7, you could do C6. Instead of a C6, you could do a C6/9. All of those chords within that chord family are completely interchangeable. There are more, but these are the most common ones, so I wanted you to have a try. So when you finish with this workshop and you want to have a kind of a bit of play with this, try mixing up those chords. Anytime you get, say, a D minus, let's go for a major one first. Anytime you see C major 7, try it as a C6 and pick the one that you like. The same thing happens with minor chords. You can have minor 7s, you can have minors, you can also have a minor 6 as well, but the most common two that come up all the time in jazz music is a minor and a minor 7. The dominant chords, look, there's lots. There's a 7, 7 flat 9, 9, 13, and you can see those numbers next to you just show that all those chords have got more and more notes in them. That's why they sound more and more rich when you play them. And then finally, for diminished chords, there are three main types: your bog standard diminished, your diminished 7, and your minor 7 flat 5, which we now know is also called a half diminished. So don't be scared of those chords that have kind of really funny names. You can swap them out, and we'll show you nice ways of doing them. So not too bad. So that's your chord families. We're going to look into that more when we come into the second half. What I'd like to do now is go back to your first two sheets one last time. Let's play the whole thing through, just as it was written. So this is pretty much chord for chord how the original Bart Howard one was played. All right, I'll try and flip the sheet halfway through if I can, if you're following on screen, but you can have two side by side if you're playing at home. Let's bring it into close cam so you can see what's going on, and I'll take it from the start. Okay, let's go nice and slow, and then I'll stop for a few questions after this one, and we'll look at the inversions and playing up the fretboard. So nice and slow after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Up to that 5th fret. Let me see what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, please be true. And then the bottom line. In other words, darling, kiss me. And then, sorry, wrong one, I'm trying to flip. And then E7. And fill my heart with joy and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. And then the bottom line. In other words, I love you. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? Such a lovely, lovely song. So, oh, no worries, Lisa. Oh, thank you. That's a really kind comment. Bless you too, Lisa. That's really lovely. Thank you, and enjoy your shift. I hope it's a nice one for you. So there we go. That's the chord structure and the song. The main thing that I want you to take from this first half is those 2-5-1s, right? You've got major 2-5-1, minor 2-5-1, and it just cements it together. All right, and loads of songs just follow those patterns. Once you get them, it's just absolutely brilliant to have. Now, there's certain kind of parts in that song where the chords aren't very voice led. That just means like one and a chord is quite far away from another in terms of the notes. A really nice example is when on this second page, second line, we go from this B minor half diminished, sorry, B half diminished. The one that I mucked up because I couldn't change sheets quickly enough. We go from there way down to this E7. Now that's not a very neat change. It's a bit far for your hand to kind of glide down. And also the notes, you've got some quite high pitched notes up here and a lot lower notes down here. It's too big a distance. So what we're going to do with this second version is we're going to add some more chord substitutions in to make it sound even richer. But we're going to look at something called voice leading, where one chord fits beautifully into another. But before we do that, I'm just going to have a swig of water because now I've got my heating on, what little of it there is. It dries me out, so apologies, guys. I just need some juice. I should have a little screen or something that comes up, shouldn't I? So you don't have to watch that. Sorry, guys. Also, I'm just going to pause for a minute just to see if there's any questions with anything we've done so far. Because sometimes there's a bit of a delay of a couple of minutes before they come through, and you might finish that and have some questions and you haven't had a chance to have them answered. But this is your third sheet. I'll just get it ready, and then I'll just keep checking to see if anything comes through. And you can see we've got some new chords in here. I'll explain what they are when we get to them, and I'll explain how they came about and how you can use them. But we've also got these chords played in some different positions. Just whilst waiting as well, just see if there are any questions coming in. You may or may not have caught the start of the broadcast. I noticed that on this sheet, the one we're literally about to look at now, there's a couple of minor errors, and I've actually created a replacement sheet for you. You can download that. There's a link in the description. You don't have to do it now. It's easy to show you what's wrong on this. It's not a big deal. It's just numbers in the wrong place. But if you want to download, it's completely free. You've already paid for these sheets, so I wouldn't dare to ask you to pay again. That would be horrible. But you can download it from my Dropbox for free. So if you want the correct version of this sheet, it's there for download afterwards. But I'll talk you through the errors anyway when we get to them. All right, it's probably the easiest way. So Esther's got a question. Thanks, Esther. Let's bring it on screen. So there we go. I'll make it a bit bigger as well so you can read it. So Esther's saying, I know we're covering strum patterns later, but at the moment, are you using the side of the thumb? That's an interesting one, Esther, because it kind of depends on how your nails are at the moment. I actually broke this nail recently, and which was a bit of a pain, but it's grown back again, this thumbnail, and I have quite a long nail. Now the answer is, if you have a long thumbnail, what I like you to do is to use the middle part of that thumb. So if I just move this out of the way a sec, you should be able to, it might even be easier the other way. Yeah, I'm going to lift my uke up. Obviously you want it down in your lap, 45-degree angles, but just so you can see this. If you're using the thumb, I want you to use the very middle part of your thumb as you strum down, because that's the warmest. It gives you this nice warm tone. If I use the side, can you hear it's like, it's a bit too brash, but middle is nice and smooth. If you've got no thumbnail at all, what I like you to do is, rather than being right in the middle, you can relax a little bit more of this one and use the pad of your thumb. That's also very nice, gives a very nice soft strum. Just whilst we're on it, for those that are feeling a bit more up for strum patterns and things like that as we do this, one of my favourite ones, I call it my patented thumb and strum for this, is to do a down strum on the first beat of every bar, and then follow it with a strum using your nails. And I keep that going. It's like this really lovely echo. Echo, echo. So that would sound something like, fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Just adds a little bit of dynamic, which is lovely. I'll show you a kind of a little bit of a pinch pattern later on as well, but that's something that you can do, which is super nice on this one. So let's have a look at these changes then. Let's see what we've got going on in this second version. So the first thing that I want to introduce is the concept of chromaticism. Fancy pants name for something actually really simple. Chromaticism is where you use notes that aren't in the key. And generally, when we're talking chromatic, we mean notes that are right next to each other. So, for instance, when you look at the first line now, instead of a G7 going to a C major 7, we've got different chords. And the reason is, when you play these chords, I'm going to show you how in a sec, don't worry, you get this melody line happening on the A string, which sounds like this. Did you hear that? The notes were going D, D sharp, E. I'll do that again so you can hear it. It's also voice leading because this chord is only 2 notes away and has several notes that are the same with this one. Whoops, no, that's not that one, which follows afterwards. And also it's only 1 note difference from the chord that followed before. And that's called chromaticism. You can always spot chromaticism whenever you're in a key, because some of the chords will have sharps or flats in them, which tells you that they have notes that don't belong in that key. Otherwise they wouldn't have any sharps or flats, right? Because you'd have all the natural ones. Now, that G9 chord is replacing a G7. And just to prove that I'm not fibbing to you, if you go to this back sheet again, or you can just look on the screen to save time, both of those chords, the 7th and the 9th, are types of dominant chords. All dominant chords are made from the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th note of a scale, which is called a major triad, and then the flatted 7. That just means the 7th note of the key flatted, okay? And then you add more and more notes on them as you go up. So a G9 chord has a 1st, a 3rd, a 5th, a flat 7, and a 9. Now, can anyone spot the problem with that chord when we're playing it on the ukulele? If you're playing that on piano, you would play every single one of those types of notes, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 9. There's a problem on uke, right? We've only got 4 strings. So what we have to do is we decide which of the notes to drop. And this is going to show you a neat trick later on, which I'm going to show you with 9th chords. Okay. If we're playing a 13th chord, it has the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, the flatted 7th, 9th, the 11th and the 13th. You just keep skipping notes and adding them. So that would be a, what is it, just counting, 7-finger chord on piano. On uke, we'd have to drop 3 of the notes to be able to play it. So if we have a G9, what notes do we drop? When you drop notes from a chord, you always want to avoid certain ones. Okay, so, oh, I don't know that book. I'll have to look that up, Karen. That sounds quite cool. David Shipway's book, Next Step Ukulele. Cool, cool. So when you drop a note in a 9th chord or any big chord, there are certain notes that you want to avoid dropping. And that's the 3rd is the first note that we very rarely drop, because the 3rd in any key tells you whether a chord is a major or a minor chord. If you look at the top, the wrong finger, the major chord has a 1, 3, 5. The minor chord has a 1 flat 3, 5. So that 3 tells you whether it's a major or minor. So we don't want to drop that. That's really important. Notice that all of those dominant chords have a flatted 7th in. That flat 7 is what makes a dominant chord. So we don't want to drop that. We need to have that in there as well. So we tend to drop actually the root, which is the first, or the fifth, because they don't really give you a lot of information other than what pitch you're playing in. So that's what happens. So when we play this G9, believe it or not, it doesn't have a G in it. It doesn't have a G in it at all. That's the one that we've replaced with the 9th note. Again, later on, if I get time, I'll show you a really cool trick for being able to turn 7ths into 9ths really easily. All right, but just whilst we're on these, let's strike whilst the iron's hot. Notice we're playing these up the fretboard as well, and notice it's the same chord shape as the B minor 7 flat 5. Now that might be confusing in some ways. It's because they're two chords that have been altered, and when you alter them, it's just kind of a coincidence that you end up with the same chord shape. But think of it as a benefit. You've already played this shape, so you know how to do it. You just have to get your brain in and think G9. The reason why we call one G9 and one B flat, 1B half diminished, is that it affects what other musicians around you play. When you're playing a G9, a bassist will usually feature a G at some point in his playing, and when we're playing a B minor 7 flat 5, B half diminished, he'll usually feature a B. So we name them after the underlying chord. That's why you end up with two different chords with the same name. Confusing, isn't it? But it's quite cool in the end, because it means less shapes. So that G9, we've already done it. It's this shape here. I'm going to use my 3 fingers. Let me come into close cam like this. There it is. Again, you could do this version. It's absolutely fine. I call this like the water full of fingers, because you've got 4 fingers and they're almost like on a diagonal. Okay, I'm doing mine like this. Or you could prefer, you could do it like this. However, it feels comfortable basically. But what we're going to do, this is a G9. We're going to add a note to it. We're going to sharpen the 5th note in the key of G. What's the 5th note in the key of G? Just count up from G. G, A, B, C, D. This is when we play a sharp 5th. This is also called an augmented. So you could always call this a G9 augmented chord as well. Again, don't sweat that. You don't need to know that. It's just interesting. All right. This is the D note, and we sharpen it just by putting our little finger down here. Now, if you're doing this 2 or 3 finger version, you just introduce that little finger there. If you're doing the waterfall of fingers version, just slip that one out there. Okay. And then we resolve this to a C major 7, which is this shape here. Now, it's kind of like a shape we've already done. It's like that half diminished shape, isn't it, that we've literally just played, or 9th shape. But it's moved up and spread apart. And that is the reason why I like to do this shape when I do my 9ths or my diminished chords, half diminished chords, because they quite often resolve to this shape. And look how easy I can just flip that up. So it'll look something like this. Okay. Remember, you haven't got to put a load of pressure on that note. You just got to touch that top one. I use this finger to push down on this one. Okay. That's another version of a C major 7. Believe it or not, it's all the same notes that make up this chord, but we're just playing them in a different order, and we're playing them, we've kind of gone up an octave, so we're playing some notes a whole octave higher, but still a C major 7. Now, the reason that sounds so lush, if I do the line, do, 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 ba-da-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba, it's because we have something called voice leading that I mentioned earlier. And voice leading is where one note in a certain chord resolves to another note. And whenever we involve chromaticism, remember we're doing, where are we? This note to this note to this note on the A string. Whenever we do that, when you go up chromatically, the one that's half step away always wants to resolve either back down or it wants to go up to the nearest whole note. Hear that? Now that's voice leading. That's why this, I forgot how to do that last one, sounds nicer than this. Because that G9 augmented is leading our fingers up there. How do you do this? How do you work this out yourself? Well, you could have a book of chords. I've got my reference book that has them all laid out quite neatly all over the fretboard. And you need to look at your chords, find how close together they are, say this one and this one, and just think about ways of altering the chords so that you can take it up to the next. And that's what we're going to do for the whole of this bit. We're going to make these chord changes smoother. All right, let's practice really slowly then that first line of the second version. This is where it says additions. So where you've got verse 1, it should say additions next to it, I think. Well, maybe that one doesn't, but it's your second version anyway, when we've been playing it. Let me find mine on my sheets here, just so I can know what I'm doing. There it is. Okay. Oh, yeah, it says additions up the top. Okay, so nice and slowly then. Oh, I'll try my untechnical terms in a minute, Esther. I'll explain what this means in a minute, guys, because it's quite good fun. Thanks, Esther. You reminded me of that. I've forgotten all about that. So the first line then, we still have our bog standard A minor 7 down here because we're setting off from a safe place. So we've got fill my heart with, then D minor 7, same as before, joy, and let me move up to this one, sing forevermore. Okay, isn't that lovely? We've got this rising feel of the chords coming up. The things that Esther was talking about is I have little nicknames. Whenever we do a thing, just one finger across for like a minor 7, you'll see that in a minute. I call that big sausage. When we do this one, which involves 2 fingers, I call it big sausage, little sausage. This one, big sausage, little sausage, spread apart. So that might help you think about the shapes, all right? Big sausage, little sausage, big sausage, little sausage, spread apart. It works for me. I know I'm nuts, but it does work. I'm going to stay in close cam just because I want to show you the next bit. So that's taken us way up here, hasn't it? Okay, we're up here on 5th and 7th frets. Now we want a smooth way of transitioning to the F major 7. Now we don't want to go from here, which has lots of closed notes, to here, which has 2 open notes. That's too big a difference. Have a listen. It's not satisfying, is it? So what we do is we do a different major 7. It's still an F major 7, but all we need to do is drop that little sausage down to the bottom fret. Now, if you're interested, the reason this is a major 7 is because we've taken a C major 7. We did that at the start, didn't we? And we've just moved it up. If you imagine the nut is acting as a bar, that's C major 7. So that must be C sharp major 7, D major 7, D sharp major 7, E major 7. There it is. F major 7. And Audrey, that was the one that you mentioned earlier. So that's your other version of F major 7, which is really lovely. Play that for 4. Now look, how cool is this? We're in the right part of the fretboard to go to our B half diminished, which is the same shape as G9. And we don't want to go all the way back to this E7. So we're going to play an E7 at the 4th and the 5th fret like this. Now this is one of those errors I was telling you about. Can you see on your sheets up here, there's an E7, it has a 5 next to it. That's telling you you're going to bar the 5th fret and put this one on the 6th. That's an error. If you want to scribble it out, guys, this one here is 4 and 5. So just change the 5 to a 4, basically. In the corrected version, I've got it in the right place, okay? But we drop back to that E7. Think about that. Oh, sorry, I cut out then, didn't I? I was just saying, I don't know what a bacon is. Maybe we'll have to think, maybe it's one of the other chords. I'm vegetarian, so it'd have to be vegetarian bacon. Okay, so let's just look at that second line where I've put staying up, okay? So we've got F major 7 here. We've got back to this shape, B half diminished. We stay on those frets and we go to our E7 here. Now we want to stay in this part of the fretboard, so we're going to play an A minor 7 and we're going to play it like this. This is quite a tricky chord for many people, A minor 7 up here. Can you see it? It's 5 7 5 7 from nose to toes. You know those diminished seventh chords we play a lot of? Think of it like that, but they've been spread apart. This is my peas in the pan if you follow my cooking analogy, because they look like 4 peas spread apart. Okay, so 5 7 5 7. If you prefer, you can play that with a bar here, and you can use 2 fingers, probably be these two, wouldn't it, over here like that. But I find that really awkward. I find it cramped, so I prefer just to go for 4 fingers. It helps us with something we're going to show in a minute. And just to really hammer home the movable shapes thing, the reason this is a minor 7, an A minor 7, is it's a shape we've already played. You might not have realised, but if I keep dropping it back, eventually my fingers fall off the fretboard and I end up with this shape, an E minor 7. So I've taken an E minor 7 and I've covered the open strings to make an F minor 7, F sharp minor 7, G minor 7, G sharp minor 7, A minor 7. See how these are all working? Okay, so that's your A minor 7. And to get to the A7 that follows, we just flip these 2 fingers around. Did you see that? This is our A minor 7. And we flip them so they look like an F shape. Okay, quite tricky, but you can do that with a bit of practice. Let's just practice it. A minor 7, 2 of each. Flip it. Voice lead in again, because there's actually hardly any movement in the notes. Cool. I actually have got a greasy fretboard today, I think. I don't think it's grease though. I think I've got a little too hot now. I'm in this big furry jumper. Okay, so let's try those first 2 lines of the second page then. I'll stay on close cam so you can follow them. Let's go really nice and slowly. First time I just call out the chords. 2, 3, 4. Fill my heart with D minor 7, joy, and let me, G9, play among the stars, C major 7. Second line, drop down to F major 7. You are all I long for, B half diminished. Move below E7, all I long for, and tough one now, adore. And we flip here. Now, if you're finding those difficult at the moment, don't worry. If this reassures you, so did I. Okay, I had to learn these at one point as well, and I find them quite commonplace now, but I really struggled with these. So just know, sometimes you just got to build up that muscle memory, think of the easiest way to do it for you, and just work on them. All right. So I'm just going to check a couple of things. So Karen's got an idea, so I just want to see what we've got here. So for the E minor 7th, I'm just sliding my finger up from the test up for the 6th. Which is that, the F major 7? I'm trying to think, or the minor 7. Or is it from the E7? I'm not sure which one that is, Karen. Just write the chords in. I know it sounds daft. Just say E7, A minor 7, or whatever it is, because I couldn't work out which one you mean, because that could be a really good tip. So I'm going to put that on a back boiler. Come back to me in a minute, Karen, because I love it when people have little tips. Sometimes it's just an easier way to move your fingers, which is amazing. So, okay, we're really getting there, folks. So we've got this movement, we're going up the fretboard, and we've got to this middle part of the fretboard, which is really lovely. So we'll want to keep that going. So we're going to play a D minor 7. Now this is my big sausage. You didn't think you'd hear that today, would you? Which is just covering the whole of the 5th fret. Okay. Now again, just to hammer home those movable chords, because I think it's really interesting. We know that's a D minor 7 because we know no fingers is an A minor 7, A sharp minor 7, B minor 7, C minor 7, C sharp minor 7, D minor 7. That's really useful because if you need an E minor 7, you could play it here. All right, but we're going to stay where we are, and we're just going to bar the whole of the 5th fret. Then we're going to pull back to this G7. It's the same as the A7. You're just playing 2 higher here. Just move back. All right. Think of it as like an F7 shape like this on the 3rd, 4th and 5th frets with your little finger in here. Notice that little 3 so you can see where we are. Okay. Bit of a tricky change. Another alternative, which would be really sweet, is you could do a D minor 7 followed by that G9 again. That's voice leading. That's a classic example of voice leading, because this note here, we've got a C note here, same as this C. This C note here just flattens to a B note, and that's the difference between D minor 7 and G9. The reason I like this G7 rather than the G9 here is because it puts me in a lovely position for the E minor 7 that we're going to do next, because the only difference you have to make from this chord to E minor 7 is pull that ring finger back. It's that simple. Crazy, huh? Let me do that again. G7 to E minor 7, just pull your finger back. Again, that's voice leading. This note is resolving to this one. Okay, and the reason we know this is an E minor 7 is because we know this is a D minor 7, so it's the same thing a bit further out, right? We play 4 of those. Next one's a little bit tricky. We're going to go for this A7. Reason we know this is an A7 because it's like a G7. Moved up. Getting the hang of it, right? That's quite tricky, but coming from here, what I tend to do is I just pull my little finger back, put these 2 down, and add this one. If you really struggle with that, what you could do is just cheat and just play the bottom 3 strings. Sorry, there. So we've got, okay, which would be fine. That's not a big deal. And then notice we just pull back, D minor 7, back to G7. Okay. And then we finish with a C6. Again, this is a tricky one. You've got to do your 2nd finger barring the bottom 2 strings at the 3rd fret. Reach over with your ring finger here to the 4th fret of the C string, and then cover the top string here. It's only really touching this top one here, but I find it easier to lay it all the way across. A C6 is another form of major chord, so you can have that instead of C or C major 7. Again, if you find that tricky, you could just approximate it by just doing the bottom 3 strings with this shape here. And then we're back to another B diminished and staying to that E7. Let's play that whole page in slow motion, and hopefully you can either play along, or if you're not quite ready and you're finding it tough, just enjoy the sound of it and see if you can work out where the voice leading is happening and why it all sounds really, really sweet. Oh yeah, I think yeah, that's what Karen was talking about as well. So Secret Euchre, I think you and Karen have had the genius idea. There's always one of these, which is really great. So just quickly before we do it, because some of you might find this useful, and Pete's doing the same thing as well, look. So when you do this A minor 7 up here, you can slide, where is it? We can slide this finger up to turn it into the A7. I don't know why, for some reason I find that awkward because this finger wants to move with it. Might just be me, I don't know. But yeah, you can do that, or you can flip them, whichever you find easiest, guys. Great tip. I love that, guys. That's why I love sharing. That's why the comments section can be so useful during these things, as well as sometimes just going, this is really hard, isn't it, and sharing it. So yeah. And one more. This is great. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. That's really nice to hear. Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Secret Euchre, can we play the C6 as 5/4/3? Yeah, that would be another way of doing it. There's another version. There's another version here as well. So there's lots of different ways. You could even play C6 all open. believe it or not, any 6 chord is the same as a relative minor 7. So you could just do C6 like that. Just have fun, see what works for you, and just enjoy it. Let's try the whole of that 3rd page now then. You're nearly there, folks, because the next page has a lot of repetition in it. All right, nice and slowly then. 1, 2, 3, 4, A minor 7. Fill my heart with song. I'm going this slow on purpose. And let me sing at the finger forever more. Drop down. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. Singing the wrong words on this bit, but never mind. In other words, darling, kiss me. Let me have a turn around. Okay, isn't that lovely? Now, everything that I've done there is for a specific reason. I'm not making it hard on purpose, I promise, because that's rubbish. I hate when people show off for no reason. It's all about the journey, right? I'll do this quick and then I promise I'll show you the next page and we'll finish him off, right? So I'm down here in one position. D minor 7 gets me moving up slightly. Then this gets me into midpoint. And then I'm right up. Okay. And then we come in, staying up there for a bit. I'll just speed it up so you can see it. Okay, still up. But notice now, I'm journeying back down the fretboard. That's for a specific reason. You get this nice falling sound of the chords, and also it means I'm kind of back to where I started, so I have the option of staying low, or in this case, the reason I like this C6 is it's starting to take me back up. So every time I make one of those chord choices, and I want you to do the same with your arrangements, I'm thinking about the direction of travel and what comes next. All right. Let's have a look at the last page then. I did promise we'll finish them off. You're nearly there, guys. You're doing so well. And remember, if you're not getting these chords straight away, you can do it. Just keep practicing them slowly, and they will come. They will come. Okay, so yeah, that's a nice way to think about it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Esther. So let's have a look at the next page then. So we've kind of come up, haven't we, from these chords? We're back up the fretboard. Now, these, I don't think there's anything new apart from one chord. So you'll be able to do these if you did the chords on the last sheet. We're going up super high again to A minor 7 up here. All the P's in the pan, right? D minor 7 is a sausage. Big sausage, little sausage, G9. That chromaticism. To the C major 7. F major 7 as we did it last time. Then I'm pulling back to the half diminished chords. Now this time I'm doing something different. I've written it in silver so you can see it. I'm going to an E7 flat 9. It's the same as a diminished 7th chord shape. You might have played this as a diminished 7th chord. If you're interested in this stuff, if you're not, don't worry. I'll show you how to play the rest in just a sec. But if you're interested in this stuff, the reason this is an E7 flat 9, this was an E7. Now the 9th note in the key of E is this one here, this one here, which is a G flat. Or I should say an F sharp. And we're taking that 9th note, that one there, and we're flattening it, so we're adding it here. So the difference between an E7 and an E7 flat 9, totally different fingering, but it's only one note. And that E7 flat 9, it comes from something called the melodic minor, so it sounds really lovely in jazz. My favourite thing though about it is when you do this one, you can go back to an A minor 7 really easily because you just push up and apart. Because all your fingers are on the strings in the right place, right? So then I can do that A minor 7, A7. And it just gives a bit of variety, doesn't it? Okay, so that's one of the major changes on this one. Then we've gone D minor 7. And I have gone for a G9 this time rather than a G7. So we hear that nice voice leading. Now I've gone fancy pants crazy in this next bit. You don't have to do this. You could just go back to C major 7, which would be fine, or a C6. But I've gone for a fancy pants C major 7. You start at the 2nd fret, add a finger over, add a finger over, add a finger over. So you're actually playing 4 strings at the same time. Can you see that? It's like going up the stairs. Okay. So it's quite a tough one that to get to quickly, because you come from here and you're going to go way back there. But with a bit of practice, it can be done. All right. But that's what I've gone for there, just to be super fancy. Another version of a C major 7. But honestly, you could do this one. You could do your C6 here. That'd be absolutely fine. Anything to kind of bring us back into the lower part of the fretboard. And then finally, we're finishing off with an E minor 7 again to an A7. This time, we only have 2 beats of each. And then we finish with a major 2-5-1, which now should sound quite familiar. And I've gone for this C6 at the end. But the beauty of it is you could do that C6. You could do a C. You could do a C major 7. All right, so you're getting an idea of how that sounds. What was it I wanted to tell you about that? Oh yeah, this second to last line is often called a false end. The first time we had D minor 7, some form of G chord, and it went back to the 1 and it went to the E minor 7 again, didn't it? Like that. But what we've got now is we call it a false end because the song kind of feels like it's going to end in other words. Please be true. Whoops. You kind of think you finished, but then no. We have the turnaround. In other words. And we pull back. I'm going to do C major 7 here because I like it. Isn't that lovely? So, again, any questions, just ping them along and I'm more than happy to help. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to play the second sheets. Because I can't flip quick enough and I end up going wrong. I will flip because if anyone's following it on screen, otherwise it'll be unfair. You won't be able to play along. So I will flip. So don't blame me if I go wrong about here somewhere. Let's play the whole of the second types of chords. But here's the important thing. If those are too tough for you at the moment and you just think, gosh, no chance, this is the beauty of it. Play the first chords or play your own patterns. It's okay. As long as you've got that major pattern, minor pattern, major pattern, major pattern. That's it. It will work, okay? So let's just try it. So we've done this version really slow. I know I'm singing it achingly slow, but it gives us a chance to get used to those really difficult chords, right? If I went, fly to the moon, you'd hate me, wouldn't you? So let's keep it nice and gentle and slow. So let me just check my words. I think I should remember this one by now. Yeah, I think so. Okay, here we go then. 2, 3, 4. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me. Here comes the change. Pause for a second because I'm not quick enough. 2, 3, 4. Fill my heart with joy and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. Well done, everyone. Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well done, everyone. Sorry, I hope you weren't following my chords because I was a bit rubbish then. I find it particularly hard to look up here and down there at the same time, so I'm ever so sorry if anyone's following mine. But hopefully, just goes to show it's tricky as heck, but practice it, practice it, practice it, and you'll get it. Oh, thanks, April. April sent me a little tip. So if anyone wants to send me tips, they're more than gratefully received. I've got a little PayPal link here. Don't feel obliged because I know you guys have probably paid for the sheets anyway, but just in case you've been super kind. So thanks, April. That's really kind. I love the way how because my program takes it out of YouTube and then translates it. So rather than having a picture, it's per character cheerfully blowing a party horn. I love that. Okay, so let me know how you got on with that. Give us a like or a heart or a grumpy face if you found it really hard. That'll be all of us, right? But let us know how you got on with that. It's just ideas, isn't it, about taking us up, thinking about voice leading, making things much more interesting. Now, I'm going to finish off in just a sec because I want to stay around just for a little bit just to see if there's any questions at all. But just to show you a kind of some other options in terms of your strumming that you could do. One thing is to take I'll go back to the first sheet where the chords are a bit easier because then we're not kind of having to cope with two different things at the same time. One of the things you can do is take that gentle thumb strum that I showed you earlier where I vary between the thumb and my nails. That's one of my most common ways of strumming. Doesn't have to be complicated at all. I'll quite often do that, and then all I do is I'll add some little quick up and downs in places, and it can sound really lovely. Have a look at this. So you could do something like fly me to the moon and let me see that play among the stars. So you can mix up your patterns, which can be a really nice way of doing it. We often call this really simple strumming comping, for short for accompanying. That's because when you've got someone singing, even if it's yourself, we need to make it really we need to let their voice come to the forefront. What we don't want, the absolute opposite of what we don't want is fly me to the moon, because there's no room for the vocals, is there, if we make it too busy. So we want to keep it nice and slow. All right, nice and slow, get that 3D thing happening. Another thing that I like to do is sometimes I do what we call jazz pinching. So what I'll do is with my right hand, let me just reduce this up further so you can see it. I'll come in at an angle, so my thumb's going to take the G string and these three fingers are going to take the C, E and A string. You don't need nails like mine, it's just the way I do finger style. I like them. Okay, now what you can do is you can use those four fingers to pull up. Can you see that? So in effect, really, the thumb is pinching down, isn't it? And the other three are pulling up and away from the uke. Now this is one of those techniques which is actually really simply effective because it does something magical. It mutes, if you bring them down relatively quickly, it mutes your strum. So you can get this nice fly me to the moon and let me play among. You can get that kind of muted strum. You could do 2 of those per measure. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Another thing I like to do is play off between these bottom 3 fingers, pulling up, and a thumb picking down on a G string, but not at the same time. Have a listen to this. All I'm doing is doing thumb for a pick, pulling up with ease, ba 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 ba, and I just do a kind of samba rhythm, or it's a bit like bossa nova. 1, 2 and 3, 4. Do that for your chord. You get this lovely fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Changes the feel of it. It's really pretty, isn't it? Let me know what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. Okay, so that gives you that really something really nice to play with. That's one of my favourite ways of playing jazz. The other way is you could do a finger pick. Just going down to the bottom and back up. Now, this is what I really love to do, is mix them up. You might do a little bit of... You might kind of do a little bit picking, a little bit of strumming, and a little bit of this. Gives you options. One last thing before I finish, which I wanted to cover, which is really important, is what else you can do with this. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Karen. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for all the really super kind tips from Canacapila and this and my other stuff this week. It's really, really kept me going. So thank you. Much appreciated, guys. I am every few weeks I send out an email saying thank you, because I forget sometimes, but if you have sent me one, know that I have received it and it's really appreciated. So I'll get a big round robin email soon thanking you, because basically you're keeping me going. So yeah, amazing. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting distracted by talking about tips. That's really naughty. So yeah, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was use this as a kind of an option during song. So the way we played it was we did the first version, didn't we? And then we played the second version. So we played it all the way through and then the second version. But what I want you to do is experiment with mixing it up. You could play the first verse using chords down here, and then you could try the other chords for the second verse or second chorus, and you can mix and match, and that's really good. A really nice thing is when you're playing the same thing more than once, to try and vary it as much as possible. All right, and lastly, just even when you're playing the harder version, look for those 2-5-1 patterns. See if you can spot them. So in that first line, we've got the D minor 7 G's to the C. That's a major 2-5-1. Next line, the F B E is a minor 2-5-1. Next line, D G, and then the replacement of a C is a 2-5-1, and then D G C at the end. So you'll see all these patterns. And the brilliant thing is you can actually use those patterns to play other songs using similar things. That major pattern, D minor 7, G7 C. Those autumn leaves, trying to get my float by my window. Those autumn leaves of red and... I'll go to the original chords because they're a lot easier. But all I'm doing here is, if I play the chords to Fly Me to the Moon, actually this is a little bit of fun to finish and then I'll stay for any questions. A little bit of fun. If I play the first few chords of Fly Me to the Moon, but I miss out the A minor at the start, it's the exact chords to Autumn Leaves. Have a listen. So ignore A minor 7, those autumn leaves. drift by my window. Those autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, D minor 7. Those summer kisses. And then it goes the minor one again. Those sunburned hands, minor 251. I used to hold. So many of these jazz songs, they just use the same tricks over and over. That's why something that looks really hard and really tricky, once you get it, it's amazing because you can play literally hundreds of songs, that's got to be good, right? That's got to be a good thing. Right, I'm gonna stay around just for a few more minutes longer, just to see if we've got any questions. Please send them through. Don't feel bad. I'm not going home till 5:30, so you're not keeping me. I'm glad to help you. All right. So let me know if you've got any questions at all. Just whilst I'm waiting to see if they come through, let me do a bit of my promo, just so that you know what else is coming up. So some of you might have seen that I've got my indie ukulele thing, which I've started, which I'm really enjoying. I've really had a lot of fun with this. The first video is up there. I'm going to do this roughly weekly. If I get a little bit behind, it might be every 10 or so days. I've nearly finished the next one, so that'll be posted shortly. Every week or 10 days or whatever, I'm going to do a new good half-hour video covering indie songs. So we looked at Creep for this one. Can't remember the words now. Whether didn't look me in the eye. I wish I could remember words. That would be so very special if I could remember them. I'm a creep. So we did Creep. We don't just do the chords though. We look at things like picking patterns, and we look at ways of adding dynamics. The next one I'm really excited about. It's going to be one of my favourite bands of all time, Belle and Sebastian. And some of you got quite into their music when we did a version of one of their songs at Canacapilla. We did You Made Me Forget My Dreams. We're going to look at a song called Get Me Away From Here I'm Dying, which sounds horribly depressing, but isn't at all. It's like one of the most uplifting set of chords you could ever play on ukulele. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. That'll be ready in the next few days. So yeah, that's on the way. So Jennifer, you're making me hungry now. I'll be off for my tea shortly. Indrani always does that on Canacapilla, because I think it's later over in Germany, isn't it, Indrani, if you're still there? She always goes off for a tea and it makes me really hungry. Just one last thing as well, whilst we're just seeing if there's any questions. Just a reminder that we've got the Forest Ukulele Retreat coming up next year. If you enjoyed my teaching, I'm going to be one of the teachers there. So you'll get me all to yourself or in a small group. But the exciting thing is we've got 4 or 5 teachers coming from around the world as well. We've got the brilliant Phil Dolman, Percy Copley and Samantha Muir, who's going to do some beautiful kind of chord melody pieces. This is all at the end of June, start of July next year, so 30th of June to the 2nd of July, and we've got this, it's an entire weekend retreat in one of the most beautiful locations in the Forest of Dean, an old hunting lodge that belonged to Henry VIII at one point, surrounded by acres and acres of ancient forest. And we're going to have tutorials through the day. We're going to have concerts in the evening. You're going to have a student concert, so you get to have a go. We're going to have a ukulele walk, where I'm personally going to do this. One of my favourite things to do. I'm going to take you on a short walk somewhere really beautiful in the forest, and then we're all going to have a little jam at the end of it. And we're going to have ukulele meditation in the garden as well. So it's really good fun. So if any of you can make it, we're down to our last 20 tickets now, so 2/3 sold out. So if you can, if you're up for it, come and see us, and it'll be a good chance to meet in person, which would be really exciting. Can't wait to see some of you. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, that's next year if you get a chance. Just see. Oh, thank you, Esther. Some really lovely comments. So that's really kind of you. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, April. Yeah, it's gonna be heaps of fun, and we do these every year. So if you can't make it to this one, we'll have one next year. We had a break for the pandemic. We had to cancel two, I think it was, and then I just didn't manage to get it all ready for last year. So it's our first one for a few years, which is really exciting, and it's the first time we've done it at Speech House as well, which is going to be great. Esther's just reminded me of something important as well. So if you enjoyed this and you're feeling confident enough, I've got a Facebook ukulele forum. It's called Uke Students Hangout, which is for any of my students, whether it be, those that I teach personally one-to-one, or whether I teach you via just YouTube lessons, or if you've just dropped in here and there. It's just a chance to share ideas, share videos, and it's a really kind of welcoming space. Really, and that's really important to me. So some people might think, oh no, I'm too nervous to record myself playing, but anyone can have a go, and there's only ever words of encouragement, never the opposite. All right, so it's a good way of boosting each other up and really helping each other with our encouraging with your learning. But also you can share ideas with other students and see how they're getting on, which is really good. I always say to people, I do these videos on YouTube and stuff, if it makes anyone feel better, the version you tend to find is about take 37. So we'll do it, it's absolutely fine. As soon as that red light comes on the recording thing, it's like But yeah, it's a really lovely forum. Come and take part. It'd be really lovely to have you here. And of course, there's my website as well, mattsteadukulele.com. And there you'll find all of the previous live lessons that we've done like this on a Wednesday afternoon. There's quite a lot now. And they're all listed, so you can take part in any of them. The sheets are still available for download, so you can do that anytime. You haven't missed out on anything at all. And as well as that, I've got courses on there as well. So if you're a beginner, you've got the beginners course, which shows you how to literally from holding the ukulele in the right way and all that sort of stuff. I've got an intermediate course which takes you onto there, and it introduces you to things like soloing and chord melody, next steps, which takes one thing further. If you enjoy going up the dusty end, I call it, the bit that we don't play so often but we should, I've got a video, a whole ukulele series in fact, on taking you to play up the dusty end, and melodies up there as well. And there's all sorts, so check it out. They're all listed on mattsteadukulele.com, and you can follow those through sequentially, so have a look at that if you haven't already. Yeah, brilliant. Oh, hi Laura. I've known Laura for a while now, haven't I? Came to I think you might come to our first ever retreat, so thank you, it's lovely to have you along on a Wednesday. Really appreciate it. And thanks Lisa. Suddenly craving sausages and peas. Oh, it's brunch over there. Goodness, I'm off for my tea. That's West Country England for my dinner, I guess. Evening meal. I'm off for that in a minute. So thank you. And thanks, Karen. Thanks, Hannah. It's Hannah, isn't it? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So yeah, lovely. Maybe another time we'll get you there. I have actually taught in the States before and in Hawaii, but it's been quite a while since I've been out that way. Went to Hawaii in April, but it's been a while since I've done any tutorials in mainland USA. But if you know any big ukulele groups that want a teacher, I'm more than happy to come and have loads of fun. Somebody was talking to me about doing one in Australia recently, but I can only do it if I can get away with bringing the kids as well, because I don't think they'd ever forgive me otherwise. So I'm going to head off now, because I realise I'm just doing that thing I do at the end and rambling with a load of odd stuff. So don't forget, no Canacapila next Monday, but we are back the Monday after that, and these live lessons are every 2 weeks, so we'll be back in 2 weeks time, and we're going to be looking at freight train and looking at ways of creating a really long arrangement, taking something short and making so much more of it. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. And yeah, take care everyone, Yukon, and I will see you soon. Sending all my love. Cheers.